magic thumb from the back of the room, so we are good to go. Give everybody a second to take a seat. Beautiful. Thank you very much. Welcome back. Another exciting instalment of Cabinet, and we've got a thriller for you all this morning. So we'll dive straight into the agenda. Minutes of the last meeting. Assume everybody's read them in great detail. Anything to raise or highlight? No, perfect. Any apologies? I think we're all here.
Apologies, Leader.
Thank you very much. Any declarations of interest? Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, it's an interest as one of the council's directors of via East Midlands on item 7, but I'm advised I can stay in the meeting.
Thank you very much. Noted.
Sorry, correction, Leader, if I may. There is an apology. Councillor Boyd Elliott is at an MCA meeting this morning, but his very able deputy is here, Councillor Glyn Guilfoyle. So thank you, Glyn.
Beautiful. Thank you, Glyn. We'll let Boyd know that we'd forgotten about him altogether, and pass that one on. No problem. No. I'm sure you do a fine job. Right. Agenda item 4 then, first substantive item on the agenda, small school sustainability strategy. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Leader. This report seeks Cabinet's approval for the Small Schools Sustainability Strategy 2024 to 2029. Nottinghamshire currently has over 70 small schools which have less than 100 or 250 pupils on roll. 54 of those are primary schools, 15 are infant schools, 2 are junior schools. I had the pleasure of visiting 3 last week. And obviously the majority of Nottinghamshire's small schools are in rural locations, particularly in Newark, Sherwood and Bassetlaw districts. However, varying in numbers of these schools can be found within all 7 county districts. And Nottinghamshire small schools are frequently a popular choice for parents. They received over 700 first choice applications for the 2023-24 academic year and play a pivotal role in their communities. And the purpose of this strategy is to encourage and support school leaders and governing bodies to review the issues and challenges that small schools face, particularly with the decline in birth rate. Small schools are impacted first. And this strategy sets out suggestions of how they can be viable and sustainable going forward, because of course it's this administration and council's priority and commitment to help those remain open and sustainable going forward. I moved the recommendations which are on page 3, but in doing so I believe we can play a video on screen to Cabinet today, which will go live on social media afterwards, which demonstrates the positive impact schools in Nottinghamshire that have already formed collaborations or federations. They tell the benefits of that, and that's what this report's all about, to encourage others to do the same. Thank you, Leader.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, and we all understand the sustainability challenges of those schools, but they can be very emotive and important to many of our rural communities in particular. So positive to be able to step in and support them around some of those challenges. Is there anything else anyone wants to raise on this particular issue? Oh, we're going to do the video, of course, yeah. Thank you for waving at me. I know I don't normally kind of make a point of using this kind of kit, but particularly where we've got external partners, in this case I think governors and some others, just to make a few points about the importance of the strategy and some of the work that's gone on behind the scenes. So just a couple of minutes for us to have a little look at.
Here in Nottinghamshire we have about 70 small schools, and what makes them a small school is having less than 150 pupils on roll. And most of those small schools are in rural villages. And small schools are really important to me as the Cabinet Member for Education and SEND, but also to the County Council and the communities where those small schools are, because quite often those small rural schools are the community hub of villages and towns across our county.
We're really, really lucky with the families that we've got. They come into school quite a lot. They're very welcome to be in. But we also have our summer fairs, Christmas fairs in the village hall, so that the rest of the village can join in. During COVID we would sing and we'd have our carol service in the playground, which was lovely because then anybody passing could see. That happened at Remembrance Day one day, and that was really moving because the rest of the village were there and they could hear the children singing, and they'd missed that. So that was really nice. and we're really close. We work very close as a church school with the church.
And as the Cabinet Member for Education and SEND at Nottinghamshire County Council, I'm really passionate about keeping those schools open and helping them to be sustainable in the future, because as we know, the birth rate is declining and that can impact the sustainability of those small schools. So we are launching a small schools strategy to help those schools become more sustainable going into the future. This document will be a really live document that governors can refer to in meetings with the head teacher to work through different issues of how to continue to be sustainable.
The sustainability, I would say, the role of governors, it's very important that you work together. It's a collaboration right through. Work together with the staff, with the head. It's imperative to do this. And here we have joint training days, joint meetings to enable us all to have a view of each other and each other's roles.
And one of the recommendations or advice and guidance in the strategy is encouraging small schools to work more collaboratively with other small local schools. By doing that, you can become a federation. Here in Norrell, that's exactly what they are doing. They're working in collaboration and federation with other small local schools to ensure that pupils have access to an enriched curriculum, whether that be joint sports clubs and football teams, etc. And it's working really well here in Norrell, and I've been speaking with the head teacher about that, and that is exactly what this document is to encourage others who may need to go down other lines of working together to do so. And we really hope this document encourages governing bodies right across the county to work together, collaborate, federate and do whatever is possible to keep these schools open in our villages and towns right across the county.
Well, there are many benefits to collaboration, in particular in the current climate is financial, by supporting each other with things like bus trips, with things like swimming that can be really effective. Using each other in terms of governance and helping each other in terms of governance, making sure that we have a wider view and a wider demographic of governors, which is really helpful and useful.
So for us, federation has meant that we've gone to one governing body, and as a consequence of that, we have a reduced number of meetings over the year. We normally have 3 a term, and that's cut it down to 6, which is much more manageable. And because staff come to those meetings as well, so that's workload on top of their daily workload. So that's been really good. We've got economies of scale. So when we're going out for contracts, for example, CPOMs, National College, we go as a federation and they give you a better price. We've got economies of scales when it comes to trips, residentials, shared workload. As a federation, we've got shared workload, so we've got a shared office manager, shared business manager and shared subject leadership.
But I think the key thing is enabling both schools to be sustainable.
Absolutely.
Because of the shared finance.
Yeah, and it's really important to us that small rural schools remain sustainable because they're a choice that families enjoy and prefer.
Okay, so we've been in collaboration with mainly 1 and now 2 local primary schools for a good few years now, and I sit on that collaboration committee, and it does work really, really well because just kind of being able to talk to other governors as well, especially when you've got quite a small governing body, is really, really useful. Recently we've all done our skills audit. Well, it's all been done together at the same time, so those results have been collated both individually for each school, but then we've been able to actually look at any gaps across the whole collaboration.
We will do moderation with other schools so that other teachers in small schools can work together, because there are different struggles, let's say, for a teacher that's got 2 year groups, so that they can work together.
And we really hope this document encourages governing bodies right across the county to work together, collaborate, federate and do whatever is possible to keep these schools open in our villages and towns right across the county.
That's a great resource. I think really positive example of being able to kind of demonstrate and articulate very clearly what it is we're trying to achieve for members of the public who might not necessarily enjoy sifting through reports, but really important issue. I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Sam, before I open it? Or
Just echo what you've said, Leader. That video brings it to life better than anyone in this room can, and it shows that it is a live document. People are living and breathing what the suggestions in the document are: federate, collaborate, remain sustainable, and we're committed to that. Great to see this document going live, so thank you for your support.
Thank you. Tracy does, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. A question first for clarification, if I may, probably to the monitoring officer. Several of us in the room are probably school governors. Should we have declared an interest in this particular item? Okay, thank you. And then my comment really is just to echo some of what Sam said about the value of the work that's been undertaken. We know there are a lot of challenges, mixed dynamics for schools. You know, whether it's declining pupil numbers, changes in the nature of the children that they're trying to support. So none of it's a linear debate, and you can't see quite what challenges might be coming ahead with any great length of vision. We've had a few challenges locally in recent years where some schools have been potentially facing closure, and so far we've been able to work actively with those schools so that they did not have to close. So this was, in a sense, a preemptive piece of work now to make sure that we're constantly having that conversation with our schools and helping them to protect themselves from the risks that exist out there. So I think it's a really good piece of work that Sam has led and the office has brought together. It's a live document. I know certainly as a school governor I will be referring my fellow governors to it. So just to commend the work that's gone into it and the document that's there.
No, absolutely. Thank you very much. And important that we do get ahead of that. We've got to try and we can often be perceived as, you know, big nasty council coming in and doing stuff to our schools. In reality, of course, we absolutely don't want to have those kinds of conversations about financial sustainability. We need to work with schools, and schools need to work with us to try and make sure we can preempt that in the long term. Bruce, did you want to comment?
Yeah, thank you very much. It happens that Noel's one of mine, but I could have quite happily gone on the video, Sam, if you'd have asked me. No, it's important. This is because, particularly some of the small schools. I mean, I'm mentioning Cornton, take for example, run into difficulty, and if they've got a strategy, they can then access that strategy to help them and stop them going too far down the road of when issues arise that may well cause them to close. So this is absolutely essential. Not only does it cause an inordinate amount of work when they do go down these particular routes, it also is a lot of work for us as well as elected representatives, and we can head them off at the pass. That's far better for us and far better for the schools as well, particularly down the academisation routes and all the different routes that are going on with these small schools. So I think I've got 7 small schools in my patch, so that I really welcome this strategy.
Thank you, Bruce. Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Absolutely welcome the report. You know, as a former chair of governors, long-standing at both secondary and primary, the importance of providing education, but providing education in a local setting that the children are happy with and the staff are happy with is paramount. And there's that knock-on effect as well. I think, you know, we are a largely rural county. So you look at what is the heart of our rural communities, our smaller settlements, and it's the school, it's the church, it's the pub and the local shop. And we've actually seen the local shops being closed in many, many areas now because they can't compete with the local supermarket in terms of price and value for money. In many places now we're seeing the local pub, which really strikes at my heart, is also closing because you know, pubs are very expensive places to run these days. We have churches now where on many occasions the church is closed because you have a vicar, parish priest, who may serve 3 or 4 different churches. Take away the school and we take away the heart of those local communities, and the community then stops being a community, and people simply live in a suburban estate a rural estate and travel outwards for all their amenities. And I think that community spirit would be sadly lost. So I think this is a really important document. It's fantastic that we're supporting these small schools and allowing youngsters not to sit on buses and being conveyed 40 minutes to a local larger academy, because big isn't always beautiful. It's really important that we pursue the doctrine within this and not make it just a document before us, but absolutely welcome.
I think that's right. An important point to recognise the cultural and community elements of this as opposed to just the educational ones. Keith, did you want to comment?
Yeah, thank you, Lee. I think I've missed a trick. I should have done a video on my housing strategy, which is one of the papers coming up. But I can see why Councillor Smith didn't use Councillor Lawton to be in the video. He wants it to be successful, obviously. I think I really welcome this report, because what it demonstrates is that as a council, we've identified something that actually was quite worrying. There was a real possibility of having to close these small schools down because of numbers, because at the end of the day they've got to be sustainable, but we've done something about it. We've not sat back and thought, oh crikey, we've got to close another school. We've actually done something about it and come up with a strategy which should help those schools survive, because they are really important. Because if you come from those sorts of areas, it sets you in a really good foundation before you then have to go to one of the bigger schools when you go to secondary school. And they've got a really good, strong foundation of being taught in small numbers, which we all know is a good thing for children, because they get more attention to their needs. And I think that's one of the big benefits of this. So I really welcome this report, which I think Tracy identified this many years ago. So well done for Tracy, and then for Sam for actually following it through and making it happen.
Yeah, no, well done, mainly to Tracy. I think that's important to highlight. Yeah, and I think, as you said, Keith, I am always pleased and proud of us as an organisation, in the sense that we don't often just go and ask government to sort us out or whatever, although obviously we do ask for things, but actually we're always looking internally at what we can do and change, and how we can deal with things ourselves, which I think is testament to some of our success in terms of both the culture and the finances within the council as well, that we do get on and tackle these issues as opposed to moan at others and wait for others to sort them out. In the absence of anybody else looking to speak to this, I just refer people to the recommendation on page 12 to approve the strategy and ask for all those in favour. Thank you, that's unanimous. We'll move on to item 5, improving school attendance strategy, Sam.
Thank you, Leader. That's me again. This report seeks approval to implement the Improving Schools Attendance Strategy 24-27. Really important to make clear that this is a government directive that local authorities have to adopt, and the purpose of the strategy is to ensure that it is a collective approach across all schools on improving the levels of school attendance across Nottinghamshire. The strategy outlines how the local authority and its partners will work collaboratively to improve school attendance, and that includes having a greater focus on data, to focus on the vulnerable cohorts of pupils, and more directly with schools and trusts. Greater partnership working through the development of improving school attendance charter, a targeted media campaign to parents to promote the benefits of attendance, and learning and strengthened governance agreements. The strategy ambition is to reduce overall and persistent absence rates in Nottinghamshire to below pre-pandemic levels, and as I say, this is government directive, so that'll be the same focus for all authorities and schools across the country. And I formally remove the recommendations which are on page 4 of this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Anyone else wishing to speak to this one? It's worth recognising it's as in pros and cons to these things in terms of government directives. Obviously, what teachers and schools may lose in flexibility, they hopefully will gain in terms of not being put in the middle of these arguments between parents and government and authorities about what to do or not to do. Much clearer from that perspective, but one that we need to accept and implement. So all of those, if I look at page 40 in terms of recommendations there, again to approve the strategy, I ask for all those in favour. Thank you. And we'll move to agenda item 6, housing strategy. Councillor again.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. This report seeks to approve of the Nottinghamshire housing strategy attached to Appendix A, covering the period 2024 to 2029. The housing strategy which is set out as an ambition in the Nottinghamshire Plan and reflects the many and varied aspects of the County Council's work on housing. We have prepared the housing strategy to bring together the wide range of roles and responsibilities across the departments to deliver and supporting house's need, and also to complement the work we do with the district and borough councils as housing authorities. The strategy has been on a journey over the last 15 months, which has included extensive consultation with stakeholders and has been amended to reflect comments. The housing strategy pulls together and complements the individual districts and boroughs' housing strategies. It has been very much kept at a high level with focus on the work that can be done over the next 5 years. The strategy includes context of housing within Nottinghamshire that sets out the current issues and evidence. The main focus are the strategic goals and associated outcomes that will become monitored in the delivery of the strategy. A corporate housing oversight group will be established, that's just gone off and I need it, established and will meet quarterly to monitor the progress. And I think within if you look at, when you read the strategy itself, what it actually incorporates is the mantra I started when I became the cabinet member for this is that we want to build homes, not houses. I think that's one of the things we do, particularly when it's our land that we're selling and when we're working with developers to get that message across. And that's why we picked some of the developers that we do that are good at delivering that, because there's nothing worse than having a dining room where you can't have a dining room table in, or a bedroom where you can't get a bed in, and they seem to manage to pass as bedrooms and dining rooms. You know, we want people to be to have a home there and live there. So this all works towards that, and I'm really pleased by how it's turned out, Leader. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. Important for us in terms of supporting all sorts of life and wider goals for our residents in terms of quality of life and health and all sorts of other things, cross-cutting across lots of what we do. And although we're not the housing authority from that perspective, we do have a big role in implementing it. It's important probably to point out just the context of the combined authority as well, in that sense that we'll look at wider housing strategy and work with us and other partners to try and deliver improved quality of housing. And we've got this perhaps early start and evidence-based and clear strategy that we can feed into that conversation as well, and make sure that we are able to secure the outcomes we need from the regional conversation too. Is there anyone else who wants to speak on this? Neil?
Thank you, Leader. Obviously welcome this strategy. Very important for housing, that our residents have good housing in the county. We get a lot of people talking about affordable housing quite often, and if I refer you to page 79, table 3, the housing completions and level of affordable housing, district councils often get criticised for the level or percentage of affordable housing that they produce. So it's interesting to note that in fact Rushcliffe has got the highest level of provision of affordable homes in the county, both in terms of numbers and also in terms of the percentage. Perhaps I might just mention that happens to be a Conservative controlled council, Leader. However, so often those levels of criticism about affordable housing are not justified. Thank you.
I'm sure I'm very grateful for you pointing that out. Jonathan?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I think for me, the key points around 1.14, 1.15, around the work that we are doing with health colleagues and around trying to make sure we've got homes that support independent living and a better quality of life. So something close to myself and Tom and our portfolio really is to make sure we've got homes that are suitable for people we are looking after, both working age adults and our older adults, because we've got too many homes that unfortunately take a lot of work to adapt, and we've got people who live in the homes that aren't suitable for them. So what I think is really important is that we continue to work with our partners, as we are making clear here, and put the emphasis on our house building partners to make sure the homes are easy to adapt, and so that people with disabilities or that need that extra support are able to have a home that's suitable for them, rather than the huge amount of extra cost that usually goes into adapting homes later down the line and the huge waiting list we have. So really welcome the strategy and the work we're doing, and really hope that all district councils can bear that in mind as well in terms of the work they're doing with partners to build these homes for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and really important to highlight the wider goals, both for us as an organisation, but actually in terms of what we deliver for residents. Obviously, for the ever increasing number of residents who are one way or another under our care and our responsibility, trying to make sure we've got sustainable long-term solutions to deliver that is really important. We're often here, and we have heard in the regional conversation, people go, districts and boroughs are the housing authority, and what's it got to do with us? Well, it's got a huge amount to do with us for all the reasons that you've just described there, Jonathan. So a positive aspect for us in terms of getting some of that down on paper and making sure that we can articulate that externally as well. Is there anybody else who wants to speak to this one? Okay, we'll bring it back to recommendations then on page 64. Propose a strategy, and we'll delegate to Councillor Girling to monitor the implementation of the strategy. All those in favour of those? Perfect. Unanimous. Thank you very much. Move on to item 7, highway services contracts. Neil.
Thank you very much indeed, Leader. I'm very pleased to present this item. It's a largely a procedural business item because it is seeking, as the report states, a 5-year extension to the existing contract with VIA. Paragraph 1 talks about the fact that the contract provides for the in-house delivery of highways and transportation maintenance services, and it is considered that an extension will benefit the council in the delivery of services in support of the Nottinghamshire plan. The 5-year extension is contained in the original contract, and in fact it has already been through overview and scrutiny where observations have been made. The report talks about the highways review that we undertook. Amazingly, I can't believe it's 3 years ago now that was instigated, but has proved very useful. The relationship between the council and VIA is extremely good, a very good cooperation between the two organisations. And I'm pleased to welcome to the Chamber Dan Marr, the MD of VIA, is here, and that shows the importance of the contract with the council because Dan has definitely introduced a lot of efficiencies, a lot of energy and enthusiasm into the organisation, which is all there to deliver for the residents and businesses within the county, and that's what it's all about, the maintenance of our highways. But contained within the contract as well, VIA are very keen to have local spend. They're very keen on social values within the county, but also they partake of a lot of training within the organisation as well, and that all works towards a very efficient and well-run organisation. And I would like to thank Dan Marr, and if he could pass on our thanks to all his staff and workforce who do such a good job in the face of, shall we say, restricted funding. And part of this is we're obviously want to be putting pressure on the government and also lobbying the mayor of EMCA, of the combined authority, in order to obtain more funding in order that we can carry on that good work. So I'd like to move the recommendations on page 120, both A and B, and also I would note that the item B refers to the approval to Executive Director, newly appointed and confirmed in his new permanent role, so congratulations to him. But this is basically onwards and upwards with normal business. Thank you, Leader.
Thanks, Neil. I echo those comments, and thanks to yourself, Dan, and your teams under, certainly over recent years, very significant financial pressures, political pressures, and also weather pressures as well in trying to tackle our highways challenges. A lot of continuous development and change in the organisation and in our wider relationship, but a trajectory that we keep trying to drive forward, and grateful for your support in trying to do that. Significant increase, obviously, in investment in highways this year, and as Neil points out, a lot of work to do, particularly through our regional conversations, to make sure that if government ever deign to confirm our additional transport funding, that we get a significant portion of that our way to continue to tackle these challenges. But from a contractual perspective, as you say, largely procedural conversation. We just need to make sure that VIRE as an organisation and ARC as well, as we come on to the next item, have that certainty to be able to continue to deliver those strategies into the longer term. Is there anyone else who wants to speak to this? Otherwise, refer colleagues to recommendations on page 80. All those in favour? Thank you very much. We'll dive straight into a very similar conversation about ARC. Keith.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. The purpose of this report is to seek approval from the Council extended its contract with ARC Partnership for additional 5 years to 2031. I think we've been our partnership with ARC has grown quite substantially over the period that they've had this partnership with us, and we've added a lot of additional work responsibilities that we want them to do. So I think it's only right that we then give them the confidence that they can invest in the equipment that they might need to be able to deliver those additional services. And I'm really thrilled with it, to be fair. We have what's called an impact report from ARC, which has been given to all the social impact report, which has been given to all the overview members, but it's also available to any councillor that would like to see it. It's also be on the web, and I sort of recommend that members have a look at that to see why we're extending this contract. And with your indulgence, I'll just go through a few of the things just to highlight that. So, if you look at the number of projects that ARC have done with us is 3,251, which equates to £346.63 million. Now, this is in the climate when a lot of councils aren't doing anything because they can't afford to do it. And one of the things they do bring to us is value for money as well. They often design things that design the prices down for us. And the local spend, which is even more impressive, is 291.88 million. That's 92% of what we spend, or what ARC spend, is local, and that's great for our local economy. They're employing dealing with our businesses, and it's all good for us because that means they're flourishing, they're employing people, and all that sort of thing. If you look at that, the promotion of skills and employment that they've achieved, they've had 113 weeks of apprenticeship placements, 77 weeks of graduate and other work placements, and 95% of their team live locally. That's incredible. So again, that's all for the local economy. That's all a benefit to the people that live in and around us. Excuse me. If you look at the ARC within the community, they've donated £87.7 thousand donated to local good causes, and I'll just go through a couple of those. Inspire Read, so with our partners there. Summer Reading Challenge, the Inspire Christmas Concert, and one thing I'm particularly pleased of, and I think they should get a lot of recognition for, is there was the main sponsor for our Boots and Berries Awards, which is an award that recognises the contribution of our armed forces services into the business community, and they've been the headline sponsor for 2 years, and I believe is agreed to do it for the next 15. I mean, for the next year at least. So again, but that just goes to show the commitment, not just to sort of bring the money in, but also to sort of do that social value within Nottinghamshire. They've helped an organisation called Switching Up, which is looking after vulnerable people and getting them off the streets, out of knife gangs and things like that, through sport, through boxing, which is a great organisation that's based in Mansfield, for example. So they're doing a lot of really good stuff with the money that they get from all these contracts, and I'm really proud to be associated with that. If I've got any complaint, is about the fact there's a leaflet here and there's no picture of me, and Councillor Taylor's in twice. So I think we can improve this for next year when he does it again.
It's a good document.
But some people say it's a good document because I'm not in it, but actually no, it is a brilliant document. And thank you for producing this, Dan, because it really does highlight not only the work that the company are doing, that it's our behest. You know, we're asking them to do that. They're building schools. You know, they're building Oak House. You know, they're on. Been driving that, been keeping an eye on the costs, which is always a problem with those sort of major projects. And unfortunately, I'm really grateful. I think they could do it a bit quicker, Oak House, but I'm always going to say that, aren't I? But I am really grateful for all the work that they do on our behalf, and that's why I recommend that we do extend their contract for a further 5 years. Thank you, Leader.
In the organisation, there is no perfect model of delivery in terms of these kinds of projects and capital programmes, but significant benefits that we accrue. I think the thing that I always remember and highlight is that even through, off the back of COVID and all the challenges in the construction industry and others, ARC was still delivering our schools on time and on budget, which was incredible, really, in the circumstances. So huge benefits that we accrue, and really important, I think, Keith, to continue to highlight what you've just said there, that in the wake of a lot of those economic challenges where councils across the country are chopping back their capital programmes, we and ARC in particular continue to deliver really, really significant investment in school improvement, in new buildings, SEND school, and the kind of savings that we can deliver for residents through Oak House and other corporate property investment as well. So really, really positive record. And again, important that as an organisation, ARC have the certainty to be able to continue to do that and invest on our behalf. So we'll move, unless anyone wants to wave at me in the next 20 seconds, Tracy.
It was really just to take advantage of the fact that Dan's in the room with us, so I can embarrass him in public. But, both you and Keith have alluded to the work that's gone on in the Sam and I's shared portfolio area over time. I've had the benefit of seeing the schools from being their sites all the way through the construction phases. We've adapted each successive plan and model because we've learnt from each one. So as far as the school delivery's gone, it's been exceptional. I think I've had a new school every year I've been a counsellor, which has been absolutely fantastic. And we have some difficult conversations sometimes. We've got other aspects of the work, like say the youth centres or children's homes, but it's about being solution focused, and we get there in the end. So I will embarrass him, and I will thank Dan and his team for the work that they've contributed to our department and to helping us be able to deliver our services. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm sure I will echo those comments. Anybody else want to speak on this? Otherwise, again, we'll move to recommendations on page 120 to extend that contract. All in favour? Unanimous. Again, thank you very much. We'll move on then to item 9, which is response to recommendations from the Scrutiny review on the cost of living. In the absence of Councillor Elliott, who is the chair, Glenn, are you presenting that one for us?
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, the report is here to share the overview committee's findings that have arisen from the task and finish review around the cost of living crisis. The recommendations from the review are detailed at paragraph 67 of the report on page 157 of the agenda pack. Chairman, as part of the work programme process, members of the overview committee expressed their concern for residents who are being impacted by the recent sharp increase in the cost of living. As a result of the scoping work that was carried out, the key objectives that would guide the review were identified as being to gain a clear understanding of the impact of the increase in the cost of living on Nottinghamshire residents, to gain an understanding of the activities being carried out by the council, delivery partners and other organisations to support the Nottinghamshire residents, and, excuse me, Chairman, new technology, to consider how the activities being carried out by the council are addressing the needs of the residents and the cost of living pressures that they were facing. Members of the review group recognise the factors that have led to the sharp increase in the cost of living and that continue to impact on residents are outside the control of the council. with the council having a limited ability to able to mitigate the impact on Nottinghamshire residents. The council, its services and staff have also not been immune to the impact of the factors that have led to the cost of living pressures being faced by residents, the impact of high levels of inflation, particularly the increases that have been seen in the cost of fuel and energy, have significantly increased the costs involved in the delivery of many council services. The council's ability to mitigate the effects on residents were, however, limited. Members of the review group, through the process of carrying out the review, were however assured that the council had done as much as was possible within its powers in supporting Nottinghamshire communities and residents who had been impacted. There is significant work ongoing with the voluntary and community sector and the council to support Nottinghamshire residents. The meetings that were held with Citizens Advice Bureau, Disability Nottinghamshire and Home Nottingham highlighted how the voluntary and community sector can create community resilience, which can in turn lessen the impact of situations like cost of living pressures or the COVID-19 pandemic. Members of the review group hope that in future there will be some further support from government that will enable the council to sustain its support to the voluntary and community sector across Nottinghamshire in order that they may continue to work together to deliver much needed, impactful and robust support to residents and communities. Leader, I hope the Cabinet would join with the OVU Committee in thanking and commending our officers, the voluntary sector and others who came together to deliver that much needed support to those who needed it. And can I also thank Councillor Carlton for his positive response to the recommendations within the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Glenn. Grateful for that, and absolutely echo the thanks both to the committee and officers involved in putting this piece of work together, and also, as you say, a huge amount of work that goes on both within this organisation and externally in communities in terms of supporting our most vulnerable residents. I'm really pleased that the report identifies some good work and good practice from us as an organisation in that space as well. Obviously, the report's formally in the name of Councillor Carlton. Do you want to speak to it at all, Scott?
Yes, thank you, Leader, and may I join with Councillor Guilfoyle in paying tribute to not just officers and staff of this council, whether they be district or boroughs, or certainly within the voluntary and charitable communities, for the work that they've done over the last few years in response to the rise in the cost of living, particularly to some of the most vulnerable people in our county. I would equally like to say thank you to members of that particular review group as well for this very thorough and excellent piece of work, those being Councillors Elliott, Foll and also, of course, Councillor Guilfoyle. Having carefully read the report and the recommendations from that, I would be advising Cabinet this morning to accept all 6 recommendations in full. Equally, I'm very pleased to see a sort of the length and the breadth and the depth that this review went in, and particularly allowing us to look at what went very well, particularly in some examples around the Household Support Fund. I think it's really brought that to life in the sense of how that fund, given to us previously by government, obviously I welcome the new government extending that into the beginning of next year. Members present will note, as I say, the depth that support is being given to whether that's families in receipt of free school meals or pensioners in receipt of pension credit, or to those that have been specially referred to that by the partnership, also consisting not just of ourselves but also our district and borough colleagues. Obviously, in light of the new government's decision to means test winter fuel payment, obviously it will be a further drawdown onto that fund potentially, and in the next few days I'll be taking careful consideration of once again how this council with our partners can rise to the challenge in supporting some of the most vulnerable in the wake of that decision. But nevertheless, I think this is a positive piece of work, sets a foundation moving forward that we can clearly adhere to, and as I say, we can be there again for the most vulnerable. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. A timely reminder of the work that goes into supporting residents through that fund. And I've seen through numerous debates in other councils in the last week or so, members pointing to the Household Support Fund as the answer to the gap left by winter fuel allowance that will not be there for many residents. So important to note what is said in this report, that it does already exist. It's not a new fund, and we've worked really hard with colleagues across districts and boroughs as well in recent years to make sure that it offers as broad and a wider range of support as possible, not just to older people, but actually young families and other vulnerable people too. So we will continue to do that work and continue to make sure that opportunity is there, and we can make them as much of it as possible, recognising that a lot of it is already there and already allocated, and it's not a new fund that can be used to replace that decision, unfortunately. But I've got a couple of other hands, I think, on this to raise some other issues. Keith?
Yeah, thank you, Lee. I really welcome this report and the thoughtful recommendations within it, and I'm glad that it's been recommended we accept all of those recommendations. And it was interesting that Councillor Guilfoyle said about the fact that it's quite limited in what we can do, but actually working with our partners in the districts and boroughs, we can probably achieve a lot more. And if you take my area, for example, in Newark West Division, I represent the largest council estate in Nottinghamshire, which has all the challenges of what a cost of living crisis would bring, which sort of surprised me then when Newcastle District Council, the Labour independent-led Newcastle District Council, rather than get involved more with this, they're going to spend almost £100,000 moving kiddie stones to the front of their council building, which isn't even in a tourist route. And that's really disappointing, particularly for those that live in the area that I represent. And I'm sure Councillor Smith and Councillor Saddington and Councillor Lee would echo the fact that there's more important things to be spending it on at the moment. I'm all for having statues and things like that, but there's a time and a place to be able to do that, and we're in a cost of living crisis. That's where our focus should be. So I'm very disappointed, and I hope they read this report. I hope they see the recommendations, and I hope they rethink what they're going to do with those stones. Thank you, Leader.
Thanks, Keith. Very important to flag. We all know that local government is under huge demand pressures, ever more people coming through the door in need of support. Although the budget often goes up, it never goes up as much as the demand requires of us, and we have got some massive priorities, not least because we know that a number of those residents are going to get less funding from central government over the course of this winter. I think it's really important we do try and encourage partners to focus on that support and that collaboration. There's all sorts of nice shiny things we'd all like to spend money on, but we're going to have to work together really closely across those partnerships, both with community and other local authority partners, as you described, Keith, to make sure we do everything we can to mitigate some of those challenges. Not sure the stones are going to do a great deal to support those residents, but we continue to have those conversations with partners and to work constructively on trying to mitigate these particular challenges, which are hugely important to all of us. Is there anyone else who wants to speak to this particular item? Okay, in that case, we'll go, obviously, recommendations initially on page 158 for us to consider this report, and Councillor Carlton's described, and the appendix indicates we have looked at, and Scott is recommending that we approve all of those recommendations. I'll ask colleagues all in favour of that recommendation. Thank you very much. Come to the final item then, substantive item on the agenda, which is around resource support academisation of schools. Back to you, Sam.
Thank you, Leader. I can't tell you how delighted I am to introduce this report that, if supported by Cabinet, will help to speed up our academisation conversion rate. There are currently 22 schools in the pipeline wanting or trying to become academies across Nottinghamshire. 3 of those are subject to directive academy orders, which is as a result of poor Ofsted outcomes. But really important to state that 19 of those 22 are schools and governors and families and the whole school family that have requested to become an academy. The 3 that are of directive academy orders will projected to be completed over the next 3 months. But if you take the other 19 at the current conversion rate of this authority, it would take upwards to 2 years to academise all those schools, which obviously delays schools, pupils and staff from accessing the benefits of academisation, which we all know is improved quality of education, administrative support from trusts and budget savings, but also professional development for staff. So we have highlighted that. We've done a lot of work to address it. Work was commissioned over the summer to assess the current conversion process and develop a set of options to improve the rate at which the council can complete academy orders, and that's really positive if we can speed that up. So there are 2 recommendations. One of them is to establish a new post, which will a project coordinator who will oversee the whole academisation journey, liaising with trusts, liaising with schools, liaising with cross departments, because it's not just the education department. There's a lot in Keith's world as property and also the legal world. So this role will help smooth that out, but they can also triage schools at the start of it to highlight which schools can be done quicker if they're more simpler to do. So that's the first recommendation. The second one is to explore the feasibility of employing additional people within the legal and property department, but we do need to consult in that because it might include raising the fee that we charge schools. So we just need to trigger a feasibility for that. Hopefully that will come back to me by December so we can actually crack on with doing more quicker. So really positive news for those schools that are waiting to academise, really positive news for trust, but most importantly really positive for this children who attend these schools, because becoming an academy will really benefit them. So I move the recommendations that are on page 167.
Thank you, Sam. I'm grateful for that, and a long-awaited piece of work in terms of trying to bring forward some support to tackle this. Obviously, as you've highlighted, large number of schools wanting to go down this route for a variety of reasons, and from our perspective, we know that over decades, really, our ability to support schools on some of the journeys they want to go on in terms of quality and improvement and others, a lot of that resource now rests in academy trusts, so we can't afford to have schools waiting on us to be able to access that support and resource. So really positive that we're able to take this first step, with hopefully more to come in terms of being able to support them. Bruce?
Yeah, I mean, this dovetails well in with the small school strategy, which is the beginning of this meeting. First of all, the second point I'd just really like to make is that academisation with some small schools will save them from closure, and that is why it is so important that we accelerate academisation, because it is saving some of our rural schools, full stop. And academisation is their only option, and the sooner we can go down that route, the better.
It's an important point, I think, to raise, not to drag it out any further than necessary, but actually we often have a political debate about the ideological reason behind academisation or the rest of it, and whether it's the right thing or not, on who runs schools and who should run schools. But actually, in a purely practical sense, as I said before, it is where the resource is, it is where the support services are, and for many of our schools, they need to be able to access that. We haven't got it, which is why we're keen to be able to support schools to go down that route, not for ideological, but for entirely practical reasons around the sustainability of those schools. Chris?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I welcome this report. I've had many discussions with Councillor Smith over the summer months in reaching this very satisfactory conclusion, but it's only part of the way to it. Of course, the second part of the recommendations, which is the exploring the feasibility of option 3, is absolutely paramount, so that we can actually put flesh on the bones. Having gone through the academisation process myself, I know that as a governor, you spend months agonising, soul searching. Is this the right thing for my school, for my staff and my students? Having reached that conclusion, you then want to get on it. You go through a beauty parade, effectively, in many cases, where you decide which academy trust you want to join. So it is a long and a painful process in some ways, but you then come to a decision as a board of governors that the head and the staff you try and take along with you, and of course there are staffing implications involving trade unions, etc. So this is not a simple process, and when you get to the point you have made the decision, and if you are then held up for many months at a time through no fault of your own, that is extremely frustrating and expensive, because of course once you join the Academy Trust there are grant funding bids that you are able to put in through the Academy Trust directly to the DFE that you may not have access to while you continue to be either an LMS or a foundation school, as was in my case. So it's really important that we show that support to our schools, and this can be self-sufficient in terms of the funding. You know, each school receives, unless they are a forced conversion, each school receives a grant from the DFE to assist them in the process. So there is funding available to be able to fund the posts. It's about us actually having the drive and the impetus to make sure that those staff are available for the schools to buy into, so that they can complete the process and then reap the benefits of academisation ultimately. So welcome the report. Thank you, Councillor Smith. I know how much work's gone into this, and Councillor Taylor, who started all this off years ago. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. I know eloquently put in terms of the challenge that we're trying to tackle and support our schools who, and again, you know, back to the original point, it's not us trying to drive schools, it's the schools coming to us and saying we want to do this, and we need to make sure that we're in a position to help them to do that. Is there anyone else who wants to speak to this item, Keith?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I welcome this report because from the property point of view, I know how difficult it is, and Councillor Barnford has spoken about how difficult it is for the schools to come up with a decision to be academy or not, but actually that's just the start of the difficulty. Each academisation isn't the same, so it's not a template, so it's a very complex part that we have to then play with our legal services and things like that. So I don't want people to think that we're slow because we're slow because it's complex. And I think for this to work, so for us to make any difference at all, it will be a resource issue, because the last thing we want to do is take the resources away from some of the major projects that we've got going, which you've put me under pressure to make sure I deliver. So I'm just defending really the sort of the system as it is at the moment. I think for it to make a difference, and I think it should make a difference, and I think we should go down that route. But I think we're going to have to sort of find some way of getting those additional resources so that it's not impacting on what we're already doing. So really welcome it. I'm in favour of it. I'm going to vote for it, but we just have to have that bit of caution. We need to put it in place so that we can deliver.
I think that's absolutely right, and speaks to what's in the report really, in terms of being able to, in the first instance, prove the recommendation effectively to add a little bit of extra resource in terms of coordination and management of this, with a view to then look at the next options and steps to bring in a little bit more, and to try and make that additional support effectively self-financing, so that we're not impacting on other elements across what is the stretch budget across the council already. So we've got opportunities, I hope, to do that. We'll kick off part of that today, and the next piece of work to look at how we then kind of add and finalise that to tackle the challenge. So hopefully positive steps, and hopefully, you know, in the context of us all coming to cabinet members and departments and saying, you know, there's no extra money, there isn't here either. So we've got to find ways to try and generate that, which is what the next phase of this work will look at. Is there anyone else who wants to speak to this? No? Okay. In that case, then, look at the recommendations on page 167, which I've basically just described. And I'll ask for all of those in favour. Perfect. Thank you. I'll kick off that next piece of work to, as I say, bring forward the next phase of that. That brings us to the end of the substantive agenda. So thank you very much. I'll give you a whole half an hour or so, perhaps even more, in the diary back in your life, and I'm sure you will use it very productively and wisely. Thank you very much.